Exchange and various other partners, computers at around $30 to $60 a pop. Those are dribs and drabs technologies. We cannot get through those containers computers all the same. The kind of CPUs that we're currently getting from these well-meaning partners in the first world are bits of this, bits of that, and absolutely hopeless when it comes to actually refurbishing and supporting those over long-term periods. What we are now doing is to buying 1,000 CPUs from traders in the States and in Europe that are all the same, and obviously at a greater cost. And at this stage, it costs us somewhere between $70 and $100 to get decent Pentium 2, sometimes Pentium 3 technologies, Tier 1 technologies, landed in Namibia. That is still way too expensive for us to support over 3 to 5 years. From the simple reason that the warranties that would ordinarily be put on new computers could not be applied to these second-hand machines, and yet we have caught ourselves up in providing warranties over 3 to 5 years to these schools. So everything is scaled up to what we can get from the first world. Keeping in mind that we are only now at the infancy of what we would like to see is a very big program to get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of computers shipped into the third world, into Africa, to support organizations like SchoolNet in the refurbishment capabilities. The cost of equipment dictates the number of users that would ultimately be subscribing to service and be looking at helping us build an income-generating model in Namibia. At this stage in Namibia, there are only about 15,000 internet subscribers. Today, there are over 250,000 mobile phone subscribers, and my hypothesis here is that it's basically a cost of equipment that plays a role in that change in subscription. If we can get the cost of computer technologies, including warranty and support, down to around $100 a unit, we will see 150 to 200,000 subscribers using the internet in Namibia. Refurbishment capacity has been talked about, and HP is a tier 1 company that we all know, has a refurbishment plant in Holland that generates 25,000 second-hand machines into refurbished, resaleable machines for the markets that they subscribe to through channel partners. Channel partners are organizations that have ISO 9000 or 14000 certification that they can and will work with only. HP refurbished computers cannot be sold to SchoolNet Namibia or SchoolNet Nigeria for the simple reason that we are not seen as certified, accredited channel partners. This gives us common cause to reflect on the validity of such standards and whether such standards actually help or actually don't help this thing we call freedom. And obviously we are looking at ways to overcome these ISO 9000 and 14000 standards, and the way that legislation is changing rapidly in the first world to deal with the recycling of e-waste, so that we can still tap into these hundreds of thousands of machines that are being refurbished against money that's already been paid for by the consumer for recycling in countries like Holland and Germany and wherever else. We need to get into that route. Refurbishment itself in Africa would be a marginal cost to compare to what you would be paying for such refurbishment processes in Europe and elsewhere. So obviously it's something that we must consider. Optimally, a 5-year cost of ownership model should be around $20,000, but we'd love to see that much lower. If we can get it down to $10,000, $11,000 over 5 years cost of ownership, then obviously we're going to see far more schools supported with technologies that have been refurbished for a lease of life in education. Namibia today needs 72,000 computers to reach what is an accepted ratio of computers to learners in the first world. So obviously to get 1 computer in for every 10 learners in Namibia, we're going to need a lot of technologies. At this stage, we cannot do that unless we change the scale of economy, and that is entirely dependent on how our first world providers and distributors play ball with us. We've managed to achieve a number of things in Namibia to support locally and remotely the mechanisms, maintenance, training, and whatever is needed to keep these dependencies happy. But we still need a serious change in the mindset of the big consumers, the big distributors and manufacturers in the first world to get to that kind of scale. Namibia only has 1,600 schools. Nigeria has 54,000. Andhra Pradesh has 66,000 schools. So obviously when we start tapping into these 315 million PCs that are being dumped or being generated for e-waste every year, we're going to have some serious reflection. What the current legislation in the European Union is going to be doing to prevent organizations like SchoolNet from tapping into the resources on which we can then build open source solutions for education in Namibia are likely to impact us at the level where we are still seen as consumers, would like to be seen as third parties that are bona fide partners of these manufacturers and distributors in the first world, and that we, as third-party partners, channel partners, with or without certification from ISO, would allow us to give an extension of life to these technologies, and then, because of the consumer cost for something called an advanced recycling fee that is now being paid for by the majority of consumers in Europe, we would like to see the EU directive change with first world influence to allow us to be seen as these bona fide partners and see the role of third-party partners change from what it is presently in the first world to that what we would like to see evolve in refurbishment capacity in places like Africa. Global eSchools and Community Initiatives has launched, along with the Economic Commission of Africa and NEPAD, an initiative called the Million PC Project, which we hope will deliver 1 million PCs to 5 countries in Africa by June 2005. We believe this is possible, but if the legislation that's currently being implemented that sees us presently either as consumer or recycler of these technologies in a developing country context where we need licenses or certification, then it is a pretty gloomy picture I paint for the future of technology Vorsprung in countries in the developing world. I think it's important for us to keep this in mind. You're all in the first world here right now. You live in a comfort zone, and obviously it's your lobby that is pivotal in making these legislators and these thinkers, these development agencies in the first world, come to track around what we would be expecting, which is simply some sort of accreditation and trust that we will not recycle in an environmentally unfriendly way, or that we would land up dumping things inadvertently because we don't have the capacities yet to do so. If you as consumer are paying 60 euros per unit for the eventual decommissioning of that technology, what happens to that 60 euros? Where do those 60 euros go when those machines are returned to the distributor or the manufacturer in Holland and then are refurbished and then sold on to channel partners in other parts of the world? That's a question we must think about in terms of trying to get this technology further. I want to end there because I've left you with a lot of thoughts, and I want you to also visit our SchoolNet website, but importantly, because some of the material you've seen on this presentation now come from and have been plagiarized without permission from ewaste.ch, but it is a gem site where you can get a better perspective on what is going on globally around building mechanisms and legislative processes around the dumping of e-waste worldwide. Thank you.